"Mom, move out of the apartment. I'm getting married, and my fiancée wants to live without a mother-in-law," declared the son she had raised alone after her husband abandoned them. "You have 1 month to pack." But when he brought his fiancée over to meet her, the girl fled within 5 minutes after the surprise. September 1999. San Miguel City Hospital. The cry of a newborn pierced the silence of the delivery room. Leonor Lopez, exhausted after 12 hours of labor, struggled to prop herself up on her elbows. Her 20-year-old face was pale and weary, but in her eyes burned an unwavering light of motherly love. "It's a boy," the nurse whispered, gently handing her a tiny bundle wrapped in a white blanket. "A healthy, beautiful boy." Leonor pressed her son to her chest, feeling tears stream down her cheeks. His little face was wrinkled and red, yet in it she recognized the features of the one she would never see again. The same dark hair, the same stubborn chin, the same long lashes. She looked out the window, cradling her child. Beyond the glass stretched the evening city, glowing lights of homes, mountain silhouettes on the horizon, stars just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, in an elite district beyond the hills, lived a man who would never know he had a son. "Fernando," she whispered, gazing at the sleeping baby. "I'm sorry, but you'll never know your father. To us, he's gone." Leonor Lopez woke at 5 in the morning. The apartment was quiet, her son was still asleep in the next room. She got out of bed quietly, pulled on a robe, and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. In the hallway mirror, a woman stared back with tired brown eyes and premature gray strands in her dark hair. Her beauty hadn't left her, but life had left its mark, fine lines near her eyes, downturned corners of her lips, and the cautious movements of someone used to bearing all the responsibility alone. On the kitchen table lay a sheet with Fernando's daily schedule. She studied it carefully: wake up at 7, breakfast at 8, work from 9 to 6. Between the lines, she read what she already knew by heart, an endless list of rituals her son had to perform just to function like an ordinary person. Check the front door lock exactly 15 times. Wash hands in a specific order, left first, then right, then left again. Arrange items on his desk with perfect symmetry. And that was just the beginning of the day. Fernando developed OCD when he was 10, after witnessing a car accident on his way to school. At first, it was just strange habits, counting steps, touching doorknobs multiple times. Then the condition worsened, turning into a real prison of intrusive thoughts and compulsions. "Good morning, Mom," came Fernando's voice. Leonor turned around. Her 20-year-old son stood in the kitchen doorway, a tall, slender young man with dark hair and gray eyes. There was something aristocratic about him, an innate elegance that couldn't be hidden by cheap clothes or the anxious expression on his face. "Good morning, dear. Breakfast is ready." Fernando walked to the table but didn't sit down right away. First, he touched the back of the chair 5 times, then carefully inspected the plate, adjusted the fork so it lay perfectly parallel to the edge of the table. Only then did he sit. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said, not lifting his eyes from the plate. Leonor felt her heart skip a beat. There was a certain determination in his voice that frightened her. "Of course, dear. What is it?" Fernando set down his fork, still not looking at his mother. "Mom, you need to move out of the apartment. I'm marrying Valeria, and she wants to live without a mother-in-law. You have a month to pack." The words hit Leonor like a slap. She slowly sank into the chair across from her son, trying to process what she'd just heard. "Getting married?" she whispered. "But why didn't you tell me? And how can you just throw me out? After everything I've done for you. I'm your mother, Fernando." "I know, Mom. But I don't want to lose her." Her son suddenly sobbed. "Valeria is a wonderful girl. She works at a bank, has a good salary, and career prospects. She loves me. And you know how hard it is for someone like me to find anyone. I don't want to be alone again." There was fear and anxiety in his voice. Leonor listened, and every word cut into her heart. She understood her son's feelings. But to throw her out of her own home? That was too much. Fernando, she said gently, what about your condition? Does Valeria know? Is she ready to help you? Don't call it a condition, her son snapped. It's just traits. I can handle it. And it'll pass soon. Valeria, she doesn't know yet, but I'll tell her everything soon. She'll help me, I'm sure of it. We'll manage without you. Leonor looked at him with pain in her eyes. Over the past 20 years, she had seen Fernando at his worst, when he couldn't leave the bathroom for 3 hours, when he sobbed helplessly under the weight of obsessive thoughts, when he begged her to help check something for the 100th time. Would his future wife be able to handle that? Could she be just as patient? Leonor didn't share her doubts with her son. All right, she said quietly, though it hurt deeply. If that's your decision, I'll stay with a friend for a while. Fernando looked up at her, and surprise flickered in his eyes. He had probably expected protests, tears, accusations. But after years of raising a special child, Leonor had learned to hide her emotions. When will I meet Valeria? She asked simply. Tonight. I invited her over for dinner. Leonor nodded and stood up from the table. It was going to be a difficult day. The day passed in a blur of chores. After work, Leonor prepared dinner and cleaned the apartment while Fernando went through his rituals. She could see how nervous he was, checking the lock 20 times instead of the usual 15, rearranging the table settings over and over. Fernando, calm down, she said gently. Everything will be fine. What if she doesn't like the dinner? What if she thinks I'm weird? If she loves you, she'll accept you just the way you are. At 7 in the evening, the doorbell rang. Fernando rushed to the door, but stopped short and began his ritual, touching the handle 3 times, taking a deep breath, then touching it once more. Fernando, Leonor called. The door. Just open it. He opened it, and a young woman of about 23 stepped into the hallway, a blonde with brightly painted lips and a confident, almost arrogant gaze. She was dressed expensively but tastelessly. Valeria looked around the apartment with a quick, appraising glance, and Leonor noticed a flicker of disappointment cross her face. Valeria, this is my mom, Fernando said. Mom, this is Valeria. Nice to meet you, the girl said coolly, barely brushing Leonor's hand with her own. Likewise, dear. Please, come to the table. Dinner began tensely. Valeria asked about Fernando's job, his income, and his future plans. Leonor listened and realized the girl was interested only in the financial side of things. Is the apartment yours? Valeria asked, addressing Leonor. Yes, I bought it when Fernando was a child. I see. Well, after the wedding, we'll transfer everything to Fernando's name. You'll probably move in with relatives, right? Leonor felt a sharp pain in her chest. The girl wasn't even trying to hide that she saw her as unnecessary. Suddenly, Fernando stood up abruptly from the table. Excuse me, I need to check something, he muttered and walked toward the front door. Leonor saw him begin his lock-checking ritual. 1, 2, 3, 10, 15. What's he doing? Valeria asked in surprise. Checking the lock, Leonor replied calmly. Why? And why so many times? 20, 21, 22. Fernando couldn't stop. Leonor knew meeting someone new had triggered his symptoms. Fernando. Valeria called. What are you doing? Come back here. He didn't answer, still pulling on the handle. 30, 31. He has obsessive-compulsive disorder, Leonor said quietly. What? Valeria went pale. A mental disorder. Intrusive thoughts and compulsive actions. Fernando can't control it. It started when he was 10. At last, her son finished with the door and went into the bathroom. The sound of running water could be heard. Now he'll wash his hands, Leonor explained. For about an hour. In a very specific way, a specific number of times. Valeria stared at the bathroom door in horror. And this, is it treatable? Why didn't I know any of this? It can be managed. But it doesn't fully go away. Fernando needs constant support. Someone has to be there, help him manage the rituals, remind him to take his medication. Be his support system. So, Valeria slowly rose from her chair. So if I marry him, I'll have to take care of him? Like a little child? If you love him, Leonor said calmly, then it won't feel like a burden. Love accepts a person completely, with all their traits. A flash of panic crossed Valeria's eyes. She grabbed her handbag and headed for the door. Sorry. I have urgent matters to attend to. Tell Fernando I'll call him tomorrow. Goodbye. The door slammed shut. Leonor was left alone with the sound of running water. An hour later, Fernando emerged from the bathroom, his hands red from the hot water, dressed in clean clothes. Where's Valeria? He asked. She left. Said she'd call. But they both knew there would be no call. Fernando silently sat down on the couch and buried his face in his hands. Mom, he whispered. I just wanted to be normal. I wanted her not to find out. But it didn't work. I got nervous, and it all got worse. Leonor sat beside him and wrapped her arms around him. You are normal, sweetheart. Just special. And one day, there will be a girl who loves you exactly as you are. And if there isn't, there will be. I promise. That night, neither of them slept. Fernando lay in his room, thinking that he would never be able to live a normal life. And Leonor sat by the window, worrying about her son's future. But more than anything, it hurt that she had no one to share her worries with. Suddenly, an image appeared in her mind, one she had tried to forget all these years. A tall, stately man, the very one her son resembled so strongly. Leonor sighed, and bittersweet memories pulled her under like a tide. 19-year-old Leonor Lopez was typing up a report when a man entered the reception area. She looked up and forgot how to breathe. Rodrigo Espinoza was the embodiment of masculinity, broad shoulders, confident stride, a strong face with perfectly defined features. But what she loved most were his eyes, gray like the ocean before a storm, intelligent and tinged with sadness. Señorita Lopez, he said. Prepare the reports. Our partner will arrive any minute. Yes, sir, she whispered, not daring to meet his gaze. It was the end of the month, and Leonor had a lot of work piled up. She had to stay late into the evening. The partner had long since left, but Rodrigo remained in his office. Leonor heard him talking on the phone for a while, then he asked her to bring him coffee and whiskey. Is everything all right? She asked without thinking, noticing how much he'd been smoking and how pale he looked. Everything's fine, he replied without lifting his head. His voice trembled, and Leonor could see he was deeply troubled. She hesitated at the door, unsure if she should leave, but something in his demeanor compelled her to stay. Señor Espinoza, if you need to talk. Rodrigo looked up at her, and the pain in his eyes made Leonor's heart tighten. Leonor, he whispered. Don't go. Please. She stepped into the office and closed the door behind her. Rodrigo motioned toward the chair across from his desk. Sit down. I need to talk to someone. And you're the only one I trust. Leonor sat, feeling her heartbeat quicken. Rodrigo stood and walked to the window, turning his back to her. Today I found out. He fell silent, his fists clenched. What did you find out? Leonor asked, concerned. My wife, Isabella, is cheating on me. With my brother. Leonor gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Do you know what the worst part is? Rodrigo continued, still facing the window. It's not that she cheated. It's what she said when I confronted her. He turned to Leonor, and she saw tears in his eyes. She laughed, Leonor. She laughed and said, finally, I'm so tired of pretending. And then she confessed that she never loved me. That she only married me for money and status. That all these years, she was just playing the role of a loving wife while secretly seeing Carlos. Rodrigo collapsed into his chair, covering his face with his hands. 12 years of marriage, Leonor. 12 years I thought I had a family, a loving wife. And it turns out, all that time I was living with a woman who despised me. Leonor stood up and walked over to him. Without thinking about propriety, she placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Do you know what Carlos said? Rodrigo let out a bitter laugh. He said I'm too boring for a woman like Isabella. That she deserves a real man, not some dull guy who only thinks about work. That's not true, Leonor said firmly. You're a wonderful person. Smart, kind, noble. You're an ideal. Rodrigo looked up at her. How do you know that? We've only known each other for a few months. I see how you treat people. Your staff, your clients. You never belittle anyone, you're always fair. And when you talk about your ideas, your eyes light up. A man like that can't be a bad person. Rodrigo stood up, and suddenly, they were very close to each other. Leonor, he said softly, I think you're in love with me. Is that true? Leonor's heart pounded wildly. Senor Espinosa. Rodrigo. Call me Rodrigo. Rodrigo, she repeated, and his name sounded like music on her lips. Have dinner with me tonight, he asked. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to go back to that empty house where everything reminds me of betrayal. Leonor knew she shouldn't agree. He was her boss, a married man, someone from a different world. But the pain in his eyes shattered her resolve. All right, she said. Let's have dinner. Rodrigo chose a quiet little restaurant in the old part of the city, far from places where they might run into acquaintances. They sat at a table by the window, and candlelight cast a soft glow over their faces. Tell me about yourself, Rodrigo said. The real Leonor, not the secretary. Where did you grow up? What do you enjoy in your free time? Leonor told him about her childhood in a small town, about her parents who died when she was just a baby. About the aunt who raised her. How she had come to the capital in search of work and a better life. About the books she loved to read. Do you have someone? Rodrigo asked. A boyfriend? A fiancée? No, she answered softly. There was never time for a personal life. Or maybe. I just haven't met someone who made my heart beat faster. You're a romantic, Leonor, Rodrigo whispered. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. And now, he asked in a hushed voice. What do you feel now? Leonor looked into his eyes and pressed her hand to her chest, unable to say a word. He understood everything. After dinner, they walked slowly through the quiet night streets. Rodrigo spoke about his dreams, building a house by the sea, raising horses, writing books about architecture. That sounds magical, Leonor said. And you? What do you dream about? A family, she answered honestly. Children running around the house. A husband who loves me more than life itself. They stopped in front of a small hotel called the Golden Rose. Rodrigo turned to her. Leonor, I don't want this evening to end. I don't want to go back to a home filled with emptiness. She understood what he was offering. She knew she should say no and go home. But when he looked at her with those eyes, full of pain and longing, she couldn't leave him. She couldn't just walk away. I want to stay with you too, she whispered. In the dim light of the room, Leonor seemed to him like an angel, fragile, beautiful, radiating warmth and understanding. Are you sure? He asked. We can just talk. Instead of answering, Leonor stepped closer and placed her hands on his chest. I'm sure, she said. Tonight, I want to be with you. He touched her face gently, as if afraid she might vanish. You're so beautiful, he whispered. And so kind. How did I never see it before? You did, she smiled. You just didn't let yourself feel it. Because you're married. Their first kiss was tender, cautious, like a touch to something precious and delicate. Then the passion swept over them completely. Rodrigo kissed her neck, her shoulders, whispering words of love and gratitude. Leonor felt desired, needed, loved, for the first time in her life. Leonor, he whispered as they lay in each other's arms. What are you doing to me? I'm going insane. I already have, she replied, kissing him on the lips. That night, they didn't just give in to passion, they opened their souls to each other. Rodrigo spoke of the lonely years and a cold marriage, and Leonor shared her dreams of true love. I don't know what the future holds, he said as they lay in the dark, listening to the rain tapping against the window. But I do know one thing, I won't be able to let you go. Then don't, Leonor whispered, holding him tighter. She knew that tomorrow would bring problems. Conversations, judgment, possibly even losing her job. But that night, none of it mattered. What mattered was that they had found each other. I love you, Rodrigo whispered, already half asleep. I love you too, Leonor replied, knowing he couldn't hear her anymore. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away their old lives, making space for something new. The following months were the happiest of her life. Rodrigo rented her a small apartment in the city center, where they met every evening. He gave her books, took her to the theater, told her about his dreams for the future. Once I divorce her, we'll get married, he would say, lying beside her in bed. We'll leave this place, start a new life. We'll have children, a big house by the sea. You'll be the happiest woman in the world. Leonor believed every word. At 20, you believe that love can conquer anything. But the happiness didn't last. A year later, Isabella found out about the affair. How, Leonor never learned. Maybe someone from the office told her. Or maybe his wife simply sensed the change in him, how he'd grown softer, kinder, as if he had finally found what he'd always been missing. On that fateful day, Rodrigo came to the office looking grim and defeated. I need to talk to you, he said. They went to their apartment. Rodrigo paced the room, searching for words, while Leonor sat on the couch, already sensing that her world was falling apart. Isabella knows, he finally said. She cried all night. Says she regrets everything. That she's realized she still loves me. She's asking for forgiveness for the affair. And now what? Leonor asked in confusion. Rodrigo sat beside her on the couch and took her hands in his. We have 2 children, Leonor. Diego is 5, Camila is only 3. Isabella is right, they can't grow up without a father. I don't have the right to destroy their lives for the sake of my own happiness. Leonor said nothing, feeling as if everything inside her was being torn apart. What about me? She whispered. You said you loved me. I do, he said, his voice trembling. It's true, Leonor. I love you more than life itself. Just like you dreamed. But I'm sorry. I can't stay with you. My duty calls me back to my family. I'm sorry for making you believe in something impossible. But I believed it too. A tear rolled down his cheek, but he quickly wiped it away. Then he pulled a thick envelope from his pocket. There's enough here for you to start a new life. Go to another city, meet someone good, get married, have children. Forget me, please. The words came hard. I can't forget you, Leonor whispered through her tears. You must. For both our sakes. Just be happy. Without me. And I swear I'll support you. Don't refuse the money, you'll need it. It's the least I can do for you, my love. He kissed her one last time, gently, desperately, as if saying goodbye forever. I will love you until my last day, he said. But we won't see each other again. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Leonor. He left, and Leonor was alone. The next day, she found out she was pregnant. 6 weeks. Rodrigo's child, the one they had dreamed of on those happy evenings, planning a future together. The world tilted beneath her feet. What now? Should she tell him? But he had asked her to forget him, to start a new life. The first few months were hell. Morning sickness, dizziness, complete loneliness. No friends in the city, no family. Only the money Rodrigo sent regularly, large sums, always with a note, from an anonymous benefactor. But money couldn't replace his warmth. The ultrasound showed it was a boy. Leonor stared at the screen where a tiny heartbeat flickered, and she cried. Fernando, she told the doctor when he asked for a name. The brave traveler, the doctor smiled. She gave birth alone. No one beside her, only indifferent nurses in pain, both physical and emotional. The first years with a baby were a true test. Sleepless nights, constant exhaustion, colic. Leonor managed it all alone, feeding, rocking, singing lullabies. The money kept arriving, but without a single note. Little Fernando grew up healthy and cheerful, but Leonor would see happy families, fathers carrying their children on their shoulders, mothers laughing, and her heart would ache. When her son first said "Mama," there was no one around to share her joy. When he got sick, there was no one to share her worry. Inevitably, the day came when 2-year-old Fernando asked, "Mommy, where's my daddy?" Her heart clenched. "Daddy's far away, sweetheart. He can't come visit us." "Why?" "Because he's gone, darling." In his young eyes, a flicker of sadness appeared, sadness that shouldn't live in a child's eyes. Leonor didn't feel like she was lying. For her, Rodrigo truly had died. Died the day he said, "We'll never see each other again." Years passed. The money continued to arrive, but Rodrigo remained silent. Leonor understood. He had truly erased her from his life. To him, she was a closed chapter, a mistake best forgotten. She stopped waiting, stopped listening for his calls, stopped searching the faces of strangers in the crowd. Since then, they lived as a family without a past. Just a mother and son against the world. And the money that arrived every month, from a ghost of a man who once said he would love her until his last day. Leonor was jolted awake by the sound of a phone ringing. She realized she had fallen asleep right there in the armchair. She picked up the phone and frowned. An unknown number lit up the screen. "Hello? Leonor?" A voice she hadn't heard in years, but would recognize among thousands. The phone slipped from her hands and crashed to the floor. "Leonor? Can you hear me?" He sounded anxious. Leonor composed herself and picked up the phone with trembling hands. Rodrigo's voice was older, but still just as deep and velvety. "Leonor, are you there?" "Yes," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I need to see you. I know I have no right to ask, but the children are grown now, they have their own lives. I can't keep pretending I forgot you. I've missed you so much. I thought about you every day. Rodrigo. Is this real? I love you like before, no, more than before. Don't turn me away. Please, give me a chance. I'm only asking for one meeting. If after that you tell me you never want to see me again, I'll disappear from your life for good." Leonor closed her eyes. For 25 years, she had dreamed of this call. And at the same time, feared it. "Where will we meet?" she heard her own voice say. "San Martin Park. Tonight, at 8 o'clock. By the old fountain." "All right. I'll be there." She hung up and slowly set the phone on the windowsill. Her heart was pounding so hard, Leonor was afraid it might burst from her chest. Rodrigo had found her. After all these years of silence, he had found her. But what would happen next? She didn't know. Fernando appeared in the doorway. He looked anxious. "Mom, did Valeria call?" Leonor struggled to return to the present moment. "No, darling. I'm sorry." "It's not your fault," he said quietly. Leonore felt sorry for her son, but there was nothing she could do to change the situation. San Martin Park greeted her with the coolness of evening and the scent of blooming jasmine. She walked the familiar paths, her heart pounding harder with each step. So many years had passed. How much had he changed? Would he recognize her? By the old fountain, where lovers once arranged their secret meetings, stood a man with his back to her. Tall, distinguished, in an expensive suit. His hair was touched with gray, his shoulders slightly broader, but she would have recognized that silhouette among thousands. "Rodrigo," she called softly. He turned, and time stopped. Rodrigo Espinosa was even more handsome than in his youth. The gray in his hair gave him an aristocratic air, and the fine lines around his eyes spoke of a life lived fully. But his gaze was the same, deep and filled with unspoken emotion. "Leonore," he whispered. "My God, you're so beautiful." They stood 2 meters apart, neither daring to move closer. More than a quarter century of separation felt like a chasm not easily crossed. "You've hardly changed," Rodrigo said, stepping forward. "The same eyes, the same smile. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." Leonore looked at him with gratitude. They sat on a bench by the fountain. Rodrigo told her about his life, how the children had grown up and moved to different countries. His son had become a doctor in Germany, his daughter had married an American. Isabella had lived her own life all these years. They were more like housemates than husband and wife. "I truly thought about you every single day," he said. "Every morning I woke up wondering where you were, if you were happy, if you loved someone." "I didn't love anyone," Leonore confessed quietly. "After you. I just couldn't." "Forgive me," Rodrigo said, taking her hand. "Forgive me for leaving you. It was the biggest mistake of my life. You did the right thing. Children should grow up with their father. But I lost you. I lost the most precious thing I ever had." Leonore looked down at their intertwined fingers, and she felt something inside her begin to thaw after a long, frozen winter. "Leonore," Rodrigo said, "I want you to know, I've filed for divorce. The children are grown now. They'll understand." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to be with you. I want to spend the rest of my life next to the only woman I've ever truly loved." Tears welled up in Leonore's eyes. "Rodrigo, there's something you don't know. I have a son." "A son? Is that true?" He tensed. "Is he from another man?" Leonore shook her head. "He's yours, Rodrigo. I found out only after you had already left. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to ruin your marriage." "But Leonore, why didn't you tell me? Why did you hide the fact that I have a son?" Rodrigo cried out, shaken. "Because you chose your children," she answered with pain in her voice. "You made your decision. But I didn't know. Oh God, if only I had known. My son," Rodrigo closed his eyes. "For 20 years I've had a son, and I didn't know." "What's his name?" "Fernando." "Fernando," he repeated softly. "A beautiful name." Leonore sighed. "But Fernando, he has a mental disorder. OCD. He needs constant care. It started when he was 10. "Tell me everything," Rodrigo said. "About his childhood, the illness, everything." For the next hour, Leonore told him about Fernando. How he had grown up a smart and curious boy, how he used to go to wrestling and karate classes, until one day, everything stopped. She choked back tears as she described the first signs of the disorder, how she spoke with doctors, searched for treatments, and learned how to understand her son's unique needs. "Leonore, I'm so sorry," Rodrigo whispered, shaking his head. "It breaks my heart that I wasn't there through it all." "Fernando is a wonderful person," Leonore said. "Kind, talented, intelligent. He just needs support." "I want to meet him," Rodrigo said. "I want to meet my son. He doesn't know the truth about you. He thinks his father is dead." "Then tell him." It's time he knew. They agreed to meet again in 2 days. Rodrigo wanted to give Leonor time to prepare Fernando for the meeting. As they said goodbye, Rodrigo pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm not letting you go again," he whispered. "No matter what happens." Leonor walked home feeling like she was dreaming. Rodrigo had come back. He wanted to be with her. Could it really be true? Isabella stood at the window of her office, clutching the photographs delivered by a private detective. Rodrigo and some woman in a park. Embracing. Kissing. Isabella was beautiful, an elegant blonde with icy blue eyes and finely sculpted features. But her beauty couldn't hide the cruelty that lurked in every gesture. "So, you found her," she whispered, staring at the photo of her husband. "And you think I'll let you leave me for that whore?" 20 years ago, she had won the battle for Rodrigo by using the children as weapons. She didn't love him, but losing him would have meant losing her status, her wealth, her place in society. And that was something Isabella could never allow, not then, and not now. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Carlos? It's me. I need your help." Carlos Espinoza, Rodrigo's younger brother, was his complete opposite. Short, stocky, with cruel eyes and a tendency toward shady dealings. He had long been running a semi-criminal business and had connections in certain circles. "What's wrong, darling?" he asked. "Rodrigo wants to divorce me. He's found his old lover." "And what do you want me to do?" "Scare her. Make her understand it's better to stay away from other people's husbands. That'll cost money. I'll pay whatever it takes." Meanwhile, Fernando sat on the couch, staring at his mother, who had just told him the truth about his father. His face was pale, his eyes filled with shock and confusion. "So, my father is alive," he said slowly. "Yes, sweetheart. And you kept that from me for 20 years? I didn't want you to wait for him. He had a family, children. And I'm not his child?" Fernando jumped to his feet and began pacing the room. "Didn't I have the right to know my father?" Leonor could see her son struggling with the flood of emotions. His face turned red, his hands were trembling, clear signs of an oncoming episode. "Fernando, calm down." "I can't calm down," he shouted. "For 20 years I thought I was an orphan. I envied my friends who had fathers. And now I find out he was alive this whole time and just didn't want to know me?" "He didn't know you existed," Leonor said softly. "I never told him." "Why, Mom? Why?" Fernando rushed to the door and started yanking the lock. Once, twice, 3 times. Leonor knew a compulsion had begun. "Sweetheart, breathe deeper. Don't come near me," he yelled, still pulling the handle. My whole life you've lied to me." 10, 15, 20 times. He couldn't stop. The obsessive thoughts attacked his mind. If you don't check the lock properly, Mom will disappear, just like Dad did. Everyone will leave you. You'll be alone. Fernando, please listen to me. No. He turned to her, his face twisted in pain. You stole my father from me. You stole my right to choose. He ran to the bathroom and slammed the door. The sound of running water filled the silence. Leonor sank into a chair and burst into tears. She had known this moment would come eventually, but she hadn't imagined it would hurt this much. 3 hours later, Fernando came out of the bathroom, his hands red, his eyes swollen from crying. Mom, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. I understand, sweetheart. You have every right to be angry. I want to see him, Fernando said. I want to meet my father. The next day, Rodrigo stood by the same fountain, more nervous than before the most important business meeting of his life. Today he would meet his son. His 20-year-old son, whom he didn't know at all. Dad, came a voice from behind. Rodrigo turned and froze. He was staring at a younger version of himself. The same gray eyes, same face shape, same height. The only difference was the look in his son's eyes, cautious, wounded. "Fernando," Rodrigo whispered. They stood a few meters apart, unsure of what to do. Hug? Shake hands? Just talk? "Are you happy to see me?" Fernando asked. "Very," his father admitted. "But you never tried to find out about Mom all these years?" "You're right. I didn't. I didn't want to interfere with her new life. What a fool I was. I never suspected you existed. If I had only known. Mom says you had a family. I did. But not the family I truly wanted. You didn't want your own kids?" "I did want them," Rodrigo said. "But they would have understood once they grew up. They would have wanted me to be happy too. But I wasn't. Every single day I cursed myself for leaving Leonor." They walked slowly through the park, and Rodrigo told his son about his life, how deeply he regretted the lost years. "Your half-brother and half-sister," he said, "they're good kids, but we're not very close. Things can be different with you. Did Mom tell you about my condition?" Fernando asked quietly. "She did. And you know what? It doesn't change a thing. You're my son, and I'm proud of you." For the first time during the entire meeting, Fernando smiled. A dark SUV moved slowly down the street where Leonor lived. Inside sat 3 men in black jackets. The driver was on the phone. "Yeah, we found her. Tomorrow morning, when she leaves for work. Just a scare, like we agreed." They didn't know Fernando had come home earlier than usual and had seen them through the window. His obsessive focus on safety had finally proven useful. The next morning, Leonor was getting ready for work when Fernando came out of his room, nervous and pale. "Mom, there was a suspicious car outside last night. I saw 3 men watching the house." "Sweetheart, maybe it just seemed that way." "No," Fernando said sharply. "I checked 15 times. They were sitting in a black SUV, staring at our windows." Leonor knew, when it came to safety, her son could notice things others would easily miss. "All right, I'll be careful, sweetheart. Better yet, don't go anywhere today," he insisted. But Leonor couldn't miss work. She left at her usual time. The street looked quiet, few pedestrians, parked cars, nothing suspicious. But when she reached the bus stop, the black SUV screeched to a halt beside her. 3 masked men jumped out. "Senora Lopez?" asked the tallest of them. "Yes," Leonor replied, and her heart dropped into her stomach. "You need to come with us." Quietly and without any sudden moves. "Why? What do you want from me?" "You'll get your answers at the location. Let's go." "I'm not going anywhere. I'm on my way to work." One of the men grabbed her by the arm, but at that moment a shout rang out. "Mom! Hey, get away from her!" Fernando was running down the street. He had followed his mother the whole time, without a jacket, in his house slippers, but holding a baseball bat. "Fernando, no! They're dangerous!" Leonor cried out. But her son didn't listen. All those years of karate and martial arts training before his condition worsened hadn't gone to waste. Despite his OCD, in a critical moment, Fernando proved capable of decisive action. He charged the first attacker and struck him in the head with the bat. The man collapsed. The second rushed at Fernando but was met with a blow to the stomach and doubled over. "We're out of here," the third yelled. "The cops are coming." Indeed, someone had already called the police. Sirens were approaching fast. The attackers jumped into the SUV and sped off, leaving Leonor and Fernando standing in the middle of the street. "Mom, are you okay?" Fernando asked, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Thank you." For the first time in many years, Leonor saw not anxiety or obsessive fear in her son's eyes, but real strength and determination. "When I saw them grab you," Fernando said, "all my rituals seemed meaningless. I realized the only thing that matters is protecting the one you love. Leonor quietly wept in his arms. The police arrived quickly, but there wasn't much they could do. The SUV's plates were fake, and the descriptions of the masked men too vague. "Senora, do you have any enemies?" an officer asked. "Anyone who might want to have you kidnapped?" Leonor shook her head. But deep inside, she was beginning to understand who might be behind the attack. It couldn't be a coincidence that all of this happened just as Rodrigo came back into her life. Leonor didn't go to work, claiming to be ill, and they returned home. That evening, as mother and son sat together, still recovering from the shock of what had happened, Rodrigo called. "Leonor, I heard what happened. I have a suspicion about who might have organized it." "Your wife?" "Isabella." "Yes. She hasn't forgiven me for the divorce. And after learning about you, she might have decided to go to extremes." "What are you going to do?" "Talk to her. Tomorrow morning. And if my suspicions are confirmed." Rodrigo didn't finish the sentence, but Leonor heard steel in his voice. Rodrigo entered the house he had lived in for many years as if it were a stranger's place. Isabella was waiting for him in the living room, elegant, cold, wearing a defiant smile. "Darling, what a surprise. I thought you wouldn't show your face here again." "Did you order the attack on Leonor?" he asked without preamble. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Isabella. I know exactly what you're capable of when it comes to protecting your wealth and social standing." She laughed, brightly, but there was nothing warm in her laughter. It was pure ice. "And you thought I'd let you walk away to your little whore? Leave me with nothing? You'll get what the law entitles you to. Half of the assets, alimony." "Half?" Isabella stood and walked toward him. "Rodrigo, darling, you've forgotten who I am. My family has connections, in government, in the courts, in the police. If I want to, your precious Leonor could just disappear. Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating facts. Either you stay in this marriage, or your mistress suffers. And her little boy too. I know the boy has mental problems. In a psychiatric hospital, anything could happen to someone like him." Rodrigo grabbed her by the shoulders. "If you touch them, I will kill you with my own hands." "How romantic," Isabella smirked. "But think about the consequences. You won't get away with this." Rodrigo let her go and stepped toward the window. Outside, he saw the garden where his children used to play. The children for whom he had once sacrificed love. "Fine," he said at last. "You've won. I always win, darling. But this time, it's different." Rodrigo turned to her. "Take the documents for all my assets. The company, real estate, bank accounts, stocks, it's all yours." Isabella stared at him in silence. Her face showed confusion. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm giving you everything. Absolutely everything. You are now the richest woman in the city. And in return?" "In return, you leave me and the people I love alone. Forever." "And what will you do without money?" she asked. "Live. Finally, truly live. With that pauper and her crazy son? With the woman I love and the son I'm proud of." With that, Rodrigo walked to the door. On the threshold, he turned back. "You know, Isabella, I pity you. You have everything except the one thing that matters. Love. And now you'll live in this massive house alone, with money that can't warm a heart." The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Isabella let out a soft sob. Only now was she beginning to understand, money could buy a lot, but not everything. Leonor stood on the terrace, gazing at the ocean. The waves gently rolled onto the shore, seagulls circled in the blue sky, and the salty breeze played with her hair. For the first time in a very long while, she felt truly free. Rodrigo had bought this house with money he had inherited long ago from an old uncle, money he had completely forgotten about. And that was exactly why Isabella never got her hands on it. As it turned out, a small, cozy house with a sea view, a garden, and a terrace was all they really needed to be happy. "Mom, breakfast is ready," Fernando called from the kitchen. She smiled and walked back inside. In the past few months, her son had changed a lot. Meeting his father, moving to the coast, the new environment, all of it had had a positive effect on his condition. The OCD hadn't disappeared, but the episodes had become less frequent and much milder. "Good morning, my dears," Leonor said as she entered the kitchen. Rodrigo was sitting at the table, reading the newspaper. He looked younger and happier than ever before. Stepping away from business and high society life had clearly done him good. "Good morning, my love," he said, kissing her on the cheek. "How did you sleep?" "Wonderfully. For the first time in years, I wake up without thinking about problems." Fernando placed plates of omelets on the table. He had learned to cook, and he did it with the same precision and focus he applied to his rituals. "Dad, what time is your interview today?" he asked. Rodrigo was applying for a teaching job at the local technical college. With no money or connections, he had to start over, but he didn't complain. 10 o'clock. "I think they'll take me. I have the experience and good references." "I'm going to the mental health center today," Fernando said. "They're looking for a volunteer to work with kids." Leonor looked at her son with pride. He wanted to help others with mental health challenges, people going through the same things he had faced himself. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." After breakfast, Rodrigo and Fernando left for their day, and Leonor stayed at home. She picked up a book and settled into a chair on the terrace, but she couldn't focus on reading. Her thoughts kept drifting back over her life. 25 years of solitude, struggle, and sacrifice. And now, peace, love, family. Could happiness really be possible after so many years of pain? The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Leonor?" "It's Maria." Maria Castro, a young psychologist who worked at the center where Fernando volunteered. A kind, intelligent girl whom her son had taken a special liking to. "Hello, dear. How are you?" "Great. Listen, I wanted to ask, will Fernando be coming in for the session today?" "Of course." "Why?" "Nothing serious. It's just, he's been helping the kids so much. He has a special gift for understanding people with similar struggles." Leonor smiled. She had noticed that Maria's interest in her son wasn't purely professional. "Maria, would you like to come over for dinner? To meet the family?" "I'd love to, if you're inviting me." "We'd be happy to have you. Especially Fernando." Leonor hung up and headed to the kitchen to plan the menu. She wanted to make something special. Her instincts told her Maria was not just a passing figure in their lives. At dinner, Maria spoke about her work and the children she worked with. Leonor watched Fernando's eyes light up as he listened to her. And Maria looked at him with such warmth and understanding that a mother's heart couldn't help but rejoice. "You know," Maria said, "Fernando has an incredible sensitivity. He can immediately sense when a child needs help. Yesterday there was a girl, Sophia, who wouldn't speak to anyone. Wouldn't trust anyone. But within half an hour of talking with Fernando, she opened up and didn't want to leave his side." "I've had some experience," Fernando said modestly. "I know what it's like to live in a world that doesn't understand you. And you help them see they're not alone," Maria added softly. After dinner, Rodrigo and Leonor stayed on the terrace, while the younger two went for a walk along the shore. "She's a good girl," Rodrigo said, watching them walk across the sand. "Yes. And she accepts our son just the way he is." Rodrigo turned to Leonor and looked into her eyes with love. "The way you accept me, despite all my mistakes." Leonor took his hand. Love doesn't look for perfection. It looks for truth. They sat in silence, listening to the sound of the waves and the distant voices of the young couple. "Leonor," Rodrigo said, "I want to make you a proposal. A real one." He pulled a small box from his pocket. It's not a diamond, Rodrigo said. I can't afford diamonds anymore. But this ring belonged to my grandmother. That's why Isabella couldn't take it. Leonor opened the box. Inside was an antique gold ring with a small sapphire. Leonor Lopez, Rodrigo said solemnly, dropping to one knee, will you marry me? Not for money or status, I have none of those. But for a love that's lasted 20 years. Tears welled up in Leonor's eyes. Yes, she whispered. Of course, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and at that moment, Fernando and Maria came running up to the terrace. Mom, Dad, what's going on? Fernando asked, seeing his mother in tears. Your parents are engaged, Rodrigo announced. Fernando lit up like a child. Finally. I've been waiting for this my whole life. He hugged his parents, and Maria joined in the embrace. We have news too, Fernando said when they pulled apart. What is it? Leonor asked. Her son took Maria's hand. Maria agreed to be my girlfriend. Officially. Fernando asked me down by the shore, Maria added with a laugh. It was very romantic. Really? Rodrigo smiled warmly. Then we have a double celebration. They opened a bottle of wine Rodrigo had been saving for a special occasion and stayed up late into the night, dreaming about the future. 1 year later. Rodrigo and Leonor's wedding was small but touching. Only the closest people were there, Fernando, Maria, a few friends and neighbors. Leonor wore a simple white dress, and Rodrigo a dark suit he'd bought especially for the occasion. Do you take each other as husband and wife, to be together in sorrow and joy, in wealth and poverty? The priest asked. We do, they answered in unison. When the newlyweds kissed, Fernando couldn't hold back his tears. 6 months later, there was another wedding, Fernando and Maria's. The young man was incredibly nervous before the ceremony, performing all his rituals, but at the most important moment, when the priest asked for his answer, he responded firmly and without hesitation. I do. With all my heart, I do. Maria became not only his wife but also his partner in the fight against OCD. She understood his condition and was endlessly patient. Now, 2 families lived in the house by the sea. Rodrigo taught at the local college and wrote textbooks on construction. Leonor opened a small souvenir shop for tourists. Fernando worked at the mental health center, helping children with developmental differences. And Maria had her own private practice. They weren't rich in material things, but the wealth of their love was priceless. If you liked the video, please support it with a like and a comment.